Welcome, beautiful people, to Petrify the Patriarchy. I'm your guide, Joe B. If you're ready to unearth the subtle ways patriarchal culture has shaped your world and uncover the hidden power within your own shadow, you're in the right place. Here we don't just speak truth to power, we wield it, turning stagnant energies to stone so that your authentic, liberated self can truly flourish. Let the unlearning begin. Hello, welcome to this special episode of Petrify the Patriarchy. I'm coming at you because of recent events, and I'm about to be another voice in the continuum of the Charlie Kirk assassination conversation, only because it directly points to the work I've been doing for the past year and a half or so. Personally, I am struggling with this scenario for a lot of different reasons. I don't want to be associated with someone who has said and directly contributed to the hate that I myself and so many of those I love experience. And B, it's Charlie Kirk. He's just fucking gross. I'm not going to go into any more of the complexities of my thoughts around this because I am a complex human with complex emotions. Really, ultimately, what I want to do is get to some of the research I've been doing as I set up my own unlearning coaching and consulting business, and how this example of his assassination fits right into what we all participate in. So again, over the last year and a half, I've been exclusively researching patriarchal culture characteristics. And what happened to Charlie Kirk is nothing short of what our systems are perpetually designed to do. We live in a patriarchal system. We also live in a white supremacist system, a capitalist system, and a Eurocentric Christian system. All of these are designed by themselves and then, of course, together to uphold one another in all the problematic ways. For today, I'm going to focus specifically on patriarchal systems as it directly points to the work that I've been doing. I'm prefacing now, before anyone jumps on the patriarchy is the natural way of things bandwagon, I'm going to ask you to sit down. There's a chair for you over there. Just go sit down. We've had enough of this for the next 5 millennia. It's obvious that the patriarchy is harming all of us, men and women, and it's time for us to consider an option. Shared leadership between the energies of patriarch and matriarch. Think balance, think yin and yang. Balance is always better than one-way highways. So, again, before anyone then decides to toss the "you just hate men" misandry comment my way, I'm going to say go sit on the laps of those that are saying patriarchal is the natural way of things. I don't hate men. I hate some specific men that I've had interactions with over the course of my time, but not the male sex, and I say sex on purpose, in its entirety. I do hate the social structure of patriarchy, which we all live under, and I will always do what I can to disrupt and challenge our belief systems as they stand. So, in my research, I've discovered 15 characteristics of patriarchal culture, but I'm going to dive into just a few in regard to what we've witnessed in the past 48-ish hours or so. But more importantly, since this administration has come into office. All of the characteristics I've researched are heavily intertwined with one another. And again, that's the point. Patriarchal culture has been designed to do that. Uphold itself. So here are a few that I want to speak to that directly speak to what has occurred, again, over the last 48-ish hours. The first one is the worth or value characteristic. The outrage from our current administration is coming from a worth or value standpoint. Charlie Kirk was a white man. I say mediocre because what else was he good for except explaining why whiteness and toxic masculinity should rule all. And here's where I'm going to point you in Ijeoma Oluo's direction. She has a book called Mediocre that dives in depth into this, and Charlie Kirk is one of these people. So mediocre. because he failed in all the traditional standard ways our society expects people to succeed, particularly white men. And he turned that anger at failing in these standard ways into fuel that became the vitriol that he has since spewed, earning millions along the way. Clearly, his words resonated with a giant portion of the population. And to some extent, I do not disagree with him, particularly when it comes to him talking about the systems being broken. They are. I left my very stable career as an educator because I was harmed so dramatically through standard practice and policy. And I have been on the verge of emotional and financial collapse since, because a woman in her midlife who is trained in education has no value outside of education. And our current state of AI taking over resume filtering is not anywhere near helpful. There's no human component to it. It just kicks everything out. And so I've since decided to try my hand at this entrepreneur thing, because finding work as a woman in her midlife, trying to bounce outside of education, is apparently not something that I can do. I'm highly educated. I'm like 3 credits shy of a PhD at this point. But because I'm a woman in the United States, and because I'm midlife, those are two intersections that are directly opposed to each other in a patriarchal system that's going to prevent me from being seen. And AI is built off of human error and is most likely kicking out many qualified people simply because it's following the trajectory of patriarchal rule. So AI is not helping anything. And I can tell you, in 2 years of thousands and thousands of applications, here I am still working on my entrepreneurship, which I love, by the way. But that standard level of go work for a system to maintain a structured pay style, right? That hasn't happened for me. I can't go back to education, and I know that about myself. But to some extent, again, Charlie Kirk was not wrong about this aspect. This entrepreneur thing is the most emotionally fulfilling experience I've ever had. It does not pay the bills yet. I have faith in myself, and I have hope that it will eventually. And more than that, in the last 2 years, I have met many incredible women specifically who have had it with our standard systems, and specifically have gone out of the way to create something incredible on their own. Something revolutionary. And they do that without the supposed steps, whether it's education or not, on their own. And without that unexpected, unfathomable debt that comes along with it. But why would we ever talk about this being an option? Going the way of college for titles and accolades, or vocational for certificates, creates a revenue stream that holds entire systems together. They're dependent on it. Thinking outside of this box creates an independence outside of the system. And this does not help major organizations or higher education or whatever system you want to think of, who depend on us going into debt or taking on super succinct cultural ways that do not support our alignment within our souls. This administration, no big shocker here, lives, eats, breathes, and sleeps greed, money, and wealth, all supported through that cultural belief of titles, accolades, certificates, and building unhealthy cultures. It's beyond an unhealthy obsession for this administration. And Charlie Kirk helped them achieve more wealth by, I say, spewing. I'm sure the right would say that's discussing or free speech, right? Therefore, he had worth and value to them, both politically and monetarily. Somehow, Republicans and the far right have tipped the so-called Christian belief into direct opposition of what I think Christianity actually is through carefully constructed language and laws so that those who are church-going types have been hooked into believing titles and rhetoric. This rhetoric is the exact opposite of what any slightly educated Christian understands. Things like support others regardless of whether or not you agree with them politically or religiously, or help others who have less than you regardless of their political or religious or immigration status or LGBTQIA stance, etc., etc. But nope. They have learned that hate and sin are worth a lot of money. So if we carefully craft our verbiage, we can buy them and they will pay. Hate and sin have been turned into monetizing machines. Not empathy, not compassion, not anything that actually benefits the whole of society. And by contrast, the children shot in Colorado on the same day do not bring any value, particularly to the right. Therefore, they're not worth mentioning other than maybe a mutter of thoughts and prayers under the breath. If that, I don't think I heard anything of it. The Democrat, Melissa Hortman, and her husband and their dog a couple of months ago had no value to them because they actively worked against the current administration's greed. They were a wall blocking them from more of what they don't need: power and wealth. Charlie Kirk spoke to the administration and their besties' best interests. Not the best interest of all, but this current administration. He knew it was monetizable, right? Therefore, only Charlie Kirk had value, which is why we see flags that have staff in Congress saying, let's pray. Not for the children, not for Democrats, not for everyday people, not anyone else. Full fucking stop. Worth and value. Mediocre, white, wealthy, Euro-Christian, heterosexual men have worth and value. No one else does. The abuse and violence characteristic. Because Charlie Kirk stood for what this administration actively seeks out, power and wealth, he is now going to be martyred by the right, leaning for his inhumane beliefs. The violence he died by is going to be the talking point to deflect from Epstein files, from kidnapping anyone who's brown and deporting them, women speaking out about their rape by our president and those he interacts with. This list is endless. His violent death is acceptable by his own words because our Constitution has it written that we have a right to bear arms. Our Constitution also says things about other types of violence through the 5th and 14th Amendment, though not explicitly, but doesn't get the airplay or the fanfare of the pew-pews, and therefore, it's okay to kidnap, rape, remove bodily autonomy rights, abuse, bully. Literally any other form of violence is fine because it supports belief systems, Eurocentric Christian beliefs. As Charlie Kirk reminded us, every time he had a microphone in front of him. Charlie Kirk was aggressive. He was considered a leader because aggression coming from a mediocre white man is obviously the best kind of leadership. It's presumed competence. That aggression was shown in how he spoke about rape, incest, women, LGBTQIA plus communities, BIPOC communities, undocumented people, etc., etc. His aggression was normalized. For all men and women in proximity to such men, especially those personifying patriarchal rhetoric, explaining why it's okay to openly berate, beat, or even kill someone who doesn't follow the conservative Euro-Christian belief systems has become our United Statesian norm. I am borrowing that phrase from my dear friend who coined it, United Statesian. We have our own unique culture to us. We are United Statesian, based in violence, based in racism, based in patriarchy, right? His form of aggression is the worst kind because it's somehow fine to hate everyone else, but for fuck's sake, don't you dare hate me. Excuse me. His use of gaslighting and through the veil of religious discriminatory rhetoric, was more of the normalized abuse in linguistics. He massaged his words to sound logical, even in their absurdity, and dismissal of humans and their capacity to live an autonomous life that makes any kind of sense to them. He created psychological violence through his messaging, which others have taken upon themselves to defend through their own violence, whether it's removing of rights, whether any of the headlines, let's just put it that way. So us United Statesians, we love violence. We fight violence with other forms of violence and abuse. We are caught in our own cycle of it. Eye for an eye, we love that shit. We love to berate and harm anyone who comes across as compassionate or vulnerable. But at this time, compassion and empathy are bad words. And probably worse, actually, if you talk to the right about it. I can't say empathy according to Charlie Kirk, but I bet if I had dropped a slur, I'd be riding on his shoulders. Abuse is more than putting hands on people. It's your words, your actions, your inactions, your stance, your physical stance, even the energy you walk into a room with. Know how you use abuse and violence in your own life and change it. The control perceived characteristic. What better way to show control than to use a firearm to make an enormous statement? What better way to create fear and maintain compliance? What a better way to create a distraction or deflection from other events happening? First, I say perceived because those in powerful places only have a perception of power. This administration lives in a bubble it created thinking their shit don't stink. But one outing to a nearby restaurant and suddenly the orange one's jolly gravity-induced scowl is supposed to look powerful and stately while hearing those in a restaurant chant, "He's the Hitler of our time," then waving his tiny hands to dismiss them via security like it's a remote control to change the channel. Secondly, when I say control, I mean the ways in which a person, set of practices, or laws exercise a way to restrain someone, to have power over in a financial, psychological, monetary, or hierarchical way. An authoritarian, right? Perceived control is what we all operate under to some degree or another. We all fear some rule, some law, some person, some threat, etc., etc. And this is exacerbated by our patriarchal systems to keep us there. Charlie Kirk's assassination shows us that. He had a perception of power with his proximity to our current administration. He probably felt powerful because of his many outlets and speaking activities, and likely felt safe in that perceived power in the crowds who wanted to see him. But in the end, did he have any control? Apparently not. Do any of us have complete control? No. Control is perceived, a construct. We were just given proof of that. Control is a cowardly way to spend time. It really honestly says fear, weakness, inferiority, a lack of love and trust. It's a list that can go on and on and on. Yet, this is going to be used as a fear tactic to try to get us all to fall in line in one way or another. All of our access to personal power and decision-making will become less and less, we're already seeing this, because we don't want what happened to Charlie Kirk to happen to any of us. At the expense of everything and everyone but guns, because guns keep us safe, obviously, they are the physical embodiment of perceived control. The property characteristic. We have come to a place more value on things than people. Except, of course, white, wealthy, heterosexual, Euro-Christian males. Because white, wealthy, heterosexual, Euro-Christian males must be protected at all times. The rest of us are of no value. We aren't even a thing, really. Guns have more protections than my uterus. an organ inside my living, breathing body. But nope, I'm property, not a person. Charlie Kirk will now be forever enshrined by this administration, and the far right is some kind of near godlike being because he was sacrificed, not because he necessarily earned anything. The children who continue to die by guns are merely the price we pay for freedom, according to. But that freedom only exists for wealthy heterosexual Euro-Christian males. Children are not able to exist within the value or worth characteristic since we cannot monetize them. We therefore cannot view them as holistic humans. Just an inevitable price for men to maintain power and greed. Women are only as valuable as their reproductive organs, which logically, when you think about it, makes no sense to those touting patriarchy as the natural order, because if we think in a traditional mindset, a woman who doesn't work has needs like food and electricity, especially if she's going to cook for the man coming home after the long, hard day, right? And children need food too, who are also ridiculously expensive, particularly that first hospital visit when you birth them. Children are expensive. They can't legally work to make an income. So it makes no sense. Most of the men I've had the unfortunate experience of partnering with don't ever want to spend money on anything but themselves. So why do they fight so hard to have to pay for freeloaders? But this ideology gives them perceived control through socialized property that gains them leverage in the corporate political world and therefore means their worth is more. Patriarchy says men are humans, the rest of us maybe only partially so. Therefore, we must be owned to some degree or another through laws, cultural or religious beliefs in order to keep ourselves from proving we have value, particularly monetarily. We must be controlled through perceived laws and social belief systems. We have to do it through abuse and violence, through any means necessary, and we must maintain through all of that any one of us outside of the male sex, again on purpose, has to be owned through insidious and sneaky ways. I could go on and on. I digress. Patriarchy is what killed Charlie Kirk. And it's what is slowly killing the rest of us, whether it's our aspirations, our savings, our retirement accounts, our bodily autonomy, or our actual physical beings. Tons of conversation around what patriarchy kills. This is in the embodiment of it, and we saw it. These are the 4 characteristics that I've researched as a part of my framework. I'm going to place those pictures within this video at the end, so take a second to look at it. Feel free to go to movingmaxim.com and download your own framework to connect with me. And of course, if you need me to support you in your unlearning, I am your coach or consultant. That's it for this special episode. Joby signing off until next time.